sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Have a
Thank you,
seat, Ashutosh.
Thank you, sir.
So, Ashutosh, as we can see, you're from Lucknow,
Yes, sir.
and Tehzeeb,
Yes, sir.
your parents are in teaching profession.
Yes, sir.
BTech Electrical Engineering from IIT Kanpur,
Yes, sir.
gold medalist. You're fond of Surya Namaskar,
Yes, sir.
meditation, and you are fond of reading self-improvement books.
Yes, sir.
Your optional is political science and international relations. Your BTech is electrical engineering,
Yes, sir.
that we have already talked.
Yes.
And your preferences are IAS,
Yes, sir.
and then income tax,
Yes, sir.
then customs,
Yes, sir.
then Indian police service,
Yes, sir.
and lastly Indian foreign service.
Yes, sir.
Any special reason why IPS has been relegated to the 4th place?
Sir, in the terms of, since I had to give the preferences, so I personally felt that I would be more comfortable and I would be more inclined towards working for the revenue arm if it comes to the second preference, if I have to fill. And since the revenue is now becoming an important dimension of our economic growth, and our aim to achieve $5 trillion economy rests on it as well. So that is why I wanted to give higher preference to the Indian revenue services over Indian police service, sir.
Okay. Ashutosh, first of all, let me ask you that what is the role of public sector in nation building?
Yes, sir.
We are celebrating this. There is a week which we are celebrating for the achievements of public sector undertakings.
Yes, sir.
So, what do you think over the years the contribution towards nation building?
Sir, if we see that in the post-independence era, immediately after the 1950s, the public sector occupied the commanding heights of our economy. And in that case, the public sector was primarily tasked with the task of infrastructure development of our nation. And we see that till 1980s around, there was a tremendous development in the terms of agriculture, in the terms of providing roads, electricity. We had various PSUs that were set up. However, over a time, kind of inefficiency came up into them, and this was because there was a non-competitive environment for them. And like after the 8th 5-year plan, since the 9th 5-year plan, the thrust was towards increasing privatization and globalization. But still, as we can see that even during the new public sector policy of 2020, we have a strategic sector for which the public sector still remains indispensable.
Okay. Now, we Indians are perceived to be very corrupt people.
Yes, sir.
Even though we are very religious people.
Yes, sir.
So why this happens? Kind of a contradiction. We are very religious,
Yes, sir.
but yet we are very corrupt.
Sir, first I would like to point out that if we look in total in the India, we have a lot of good thing as well. There may be some corrupt people, and the corruption by and large is not completely prevalent in India, but still, yes, it is a significant part, and even we can see that in the public services as well. This corruption, if we look from the personal point of view, it emanates from the moral qualities of a person. If every person can have, like Plato had pointed out, the passions and the courage, and in different proportion. If the passion part starts dominating, then naturally a person starts seeking will. So this is the personal dimension. If we come particularly towards the administrative dimension, then the corruption reason, I think it comes because there is the kind of prosecution that is done. For those who have done, it is very tardy. And a lot of time and delays are required for getting the approvals from the government to file the charge sheet, get the approval. And this in turn sends a wrong message to those who are to those who are corrupt. And many times it is also seen that the corrupt officials, they are also given good postings, and this kind of demoralizes the honest officers. So it creates a wrong mindset. But many steps now are being taken, and we have a very proactive vigilance that is being carried out. And so steps are being taken to do it. Like recently in Uttar Pradesh itself, SP of Mahoba district, former SP, he was against him a non-bailable warrant was issued because he indulged in such corrupt activities.
Okay. So, Prevention of Corruption Act was recently amended in 2018.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me one or two interesting things which have been brought there and the reason for that? Any idea?
Sir, one of the point I am able to recall is that now the act of even offering the bribe is also now made a criminal
Correct,
offense.
absolutely right. That is definitely there.
Yes, sir.
Any other thing?
And sir, I think I'm not aware of exact provision, but certain protection was given to the honest officials as well. But its provision I'm not aware of.
So the second was that the corporate houses
Yes,
are
sir.
also now liable to be proceeded against
Okay,
the
sir.
managing director, the director, if they offer a bribe
Okay,
to a
sir.
government servant.
Okay, sir.
And the third thing which you mentioned,
Yes, sir.
that those people, since because of the Prevention of Corruption Act, there was a paralysis of analysis.
Yes,
so
sir.
nobody was trying to take a decision.
Yes, sir.
And that is why, to protect such people, something was done.
Yes,
So my last question is, often it is said that civil service is not a job,
Yes,
it's
sir.
a service.
Yes, sir.
Can you expand that?
So civil servants, they are primarily responsible for managing the community resources, and their decisions, they impact large number of the people. And it is called as a service because if we look in India, as the National Multidimensional Poverty Report 2021 is still pointed out, that around 37.9% people are still multidimensionally poor. And civil servants have to play a very important role in uplifting their quality of the life, and their decisions have to be guided by the Gandhiji's talisman. So I think that is why the role of the civil services is primarily a service and not a job.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
See, there is there is a situation where people are not coming forward to invest in Uttar Pradesh
Yes, sir.
and many other states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, and even South southern states are also getting good investment. You are made in charge of you see the department
Yes, sir.
that you have to bring the investment. What will be your priorities? How you will attract investment?
Sir, for attracting the investment, we have to start from the investment summit. And the aim of this summit should be primarily to enhance the awareness among the people. In the investment summit, I would like to point out the strengths that Uttar Pradesh offers. For example, in the Uttar Pradesh, around 8 agroclimatic zones are there. There is a lot of fertile soil, good river, and so agricultural produce food processing offers promising opportunities. Secondly, we can see that logistics is being encouraged in Uttar Pradesh. For example, a multimodal logistic park is being set up in Varanasi. Uttar Pradesh sits at the intersection of eastern and western dedicated freight corridor as well. So Uttar Pradesh is now going to offer good connectivity also to the investors. The zero tolerance policy towards the crime and the good law and order situation, as we have seen, it offers a kind of certain environment and a good environment for the businesses to operate. So I would like to point out these activities towards the investment firms and try to attract investment. Also, there is a dedicated Udyog Bandhu investment, like three-tier development vehicle in which the divisional chief secretary, divisional commissioner, and district magistrate, they are responsible for facilitating the businesses. So I think by pointing out these certain confidence would be there in investors, and they would like to invest.
They will focus more actually on ease of doing business and
Yes.
what concessions actually you give
Yes, sir.
in terms of power, in terms of taxation.
Yes, sir.
They will insist for that and a cheap land.
Sir, in the terms of ease
Now,
of
on these three aspects,
yes, sir.
how you can convince them and what
Sir,
you can offer them.
yes. Sir, I would like to point out to them that as per the NITI Aayog's Business Reform Action Plan, Uttar Pradesh ranks second on the Ease of Doing Business Index. And after the COVID, a lot of relaxation was given to the businesses. So that is the first aspect that I would like to point out. Secondly, regarding the incentives, a lot of policies have been brought out by Uttar Pradesh government. For example, electronics manufacturing policy is there, and we have an electronics manufacturing zone that is being set up in Noida. And these incentives are being now also channeled through the production linked incentive scheme as well of the government of India. Third, in the terms of land, I would try to point out to them how smooth land acquisition has been done while the construction of Purvanchal Expressway and the Bundelkhand Expressway as it is proceeding. So the administrative framework is there in place to do a good land acquisition for them.
Land acquisition was done under which act, which rules?
Sir, exact rules I'm not aware of, but there is an Act Land Acquisition and Just Rehabilitation Act of 2013. Exact LARR, I know the short form, but its full form.
This is the new one or old one?
Sir, this was the new one, sir. 2013 Act.
How it is different from the old one?
Sir, this provision I'm not aware of it. Sir.
The land is very important actually for any industry,
Yes.
any investor.
Yes, sir.
He will ask actually how much time it will take to procure land,
Yes, sir.
what will be the prices, how you will actually complete it, what will be the time duration.
Yes. Sir, I'll try to read about it, sir.
Yeah, land acquisition is very important.
Okay, sir.
Anyway, my last question. In a state like you see UP,
Yes, sir.
what is the importance of local bodies and how they are performing in Uttar Pradesh?
Sir, in the terms of importance of the local bodies, we can see that Uttar Pradesh has a lot of regional disparity. For example, if you look at the western Uttar Pradesh, it is more prosperous as compared to the Purvanchal or the Bundelkhand. So, in order to bring a regionally inclusive development, the role of the regional bodies become important because they take into account the local factors while planning the policies, the developmental parameters. So, in that sense, the local bodies are important. And also we can see that there are a lot of schemes, and like there was a people's plan campaign that was organized in 2021, which emphasizes on the role of gram panchayats and the urban local bodies as well. So in that sense it is important. Sir, the current state of urban local bodies, I remember about Jhansi, it ranked ninth on the municipal performance index. And apart from that, however, the generic problems regarding the devolution of the triple F, that is the funds, functions, and functionaries, they remain in this.
What is the main challenges for the local bodies?
Sir, the first three are, as even the second Administrative Reforms Commission has pointed out, the shortage of the funds and adequate taxation powers are not devolved by the state. The second one is that there is a shortage of the functionaries. For example, the municipal commissioner, he is usually an IAS officer and he remains under the control of the state government. And so adequate autonomy is not there for the local bodies. The third one is that under the 12th schedule, adequate responsibilities have not been devolved by the state legislature to the urban local bodies. Apart from that, the parastatal bodies, for example, district rural development agency, etc., they kind of encroach upon the functions of the urban local bodies.
But who stops them? Who stops them?
Sir, I think it should be.
They have their own budget.
Yes, sir.
They have their own actually staff, functionaries. They can hire, they can appoint.
Sir, I think the adequate work culture is not there. The people are not still trained enough to think in such an expansive manner and bring a good development plan.
Okay.
Pratik, electrical engineering, Kanpur,
Yes.
2017,
Yes, sir.
9.9.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what takes you away from your core subject? You're brilliant, 9.9.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, political science I have chosen as optional because first it provided me an opportunity to learn a new subject, and the second was also because it would overlap with the other general studies paper. So I thought that it would help me in getting a good understanding of the other subjects as well.
But my question is,
Yes, ma'am.
why are you weaning away from your core subject of electrical engineering?
Ma'am, I think that in the civil services also the electrical engineering offers a lot of opportunities for the implementation. And we can take an example of a standalone microgrid where there are a lot of rural villages in remote areas that are still not getting proper electricity connection, and there is still not reliable supply. There is a lot of power cuts.
But my core question is,
Yes, ma'am.
why are you leaving electrical engineering and moving into administration? Or so you desire to?
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Ma'am, my interest towards administration was primarily from the childhood because my mother, she had also given the civil services examination way back in 1992, but she could not qualify it, so she has always inspired me. So this has been a personal reason. Secondly, I had also had, during the terms of my tenure of my graduation, I had a chance to interact with the senior IAS officer, and he also explained me, and then I realized that civil services would offer a diverse opportunities, and I would also get an opportunity to work at the grassroots level. And third, I also keep on reading about in various initiatives that have been taken by various IAS officers, and they kind of inspire me.
Those are very hackneyed things. You were invested 4 years of your life into this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
And now from 2017, we are in which year?
Ma'am, 2022.
How many years?
Ma'am, 5 years.
So you've invested another 5 years to just prepare for the civil services?
Ma'am, I would like to point out the statement.
You didn't take up any placement?
No, ma'am, I did not sit for the placement.
You didn't sit for the placement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me.
Ma'am, I would simply like to point out the statement of Elon Musk. He is the chairman
Yeah,
of,
yeah, I know who is.
and
Tell
ma'am,
me.
he said that if something is important, then we should never ever give up. And if I think I've set my goal towards getting into the civil services, then I would not give up. And if there are failures, then they are there for learning them. Like this was
4 years
yes, ma'am.
is a very long time for a bright, exceptionally bright student like you. From your academic track record, I can make out you're an exceptionally bright student.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if you have set your target,
Yes,
have
ma'am.
you also set the time limit?
Ma'am, I was planning to get in it in the first attempt itself, but in the first and second attempt, I could not qualify the preliminary examination itself.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And this was because I was taking a lot of guesswork there, and hence I was accumulating a lot of negative marks in it. Then, when I came to my third attempt, my entire focus was on the preliminary examination, and so I missed the mains examination cutoff by 11 marks.
All right. Do you think time travel will be a reality soon?
Ma'am, for time travel to be a reality, it is very difficult because to supply a one mass backward into the time would require infinite amount of energy, and this quantity of energy, I think, it is very difficult to produce, like in the current scenario. And also, a lot of research into the physics, and especially this goes into the realm of space time. So the relativistic kind of theory would come into the play.
So, if we could,
Yes, ma'am.
how would you do things differently?
Ma'am, if I had to go back way back to the 2017, then I would have been very calculative about how many questions I would attempt in the prelims examination, so I would not have accumulated those negative marks, ma'am.
Okay. Now, economy's health is not very sound, but the
Yes, ma'am.
markets are booming. Why so?
Ma'am, these markets were booming because a lot of investment was coming in via the foreign portfolio investors, and this was because a very liberalized monetary policy is being followed in the Western countries in the post-COVID period. So this lot of info is coming in the investment. Those money there, the surplus liquidity, it is flowing into the Indian stock exchange because the developing economies usually have a higher growth rate, and that is why for getting better returns, they were seeking the Indian stock exchange market.
All right. So, let us talk a little bit of the Bitcoin. Is it here to stay?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. The Bitcoin is now a reality and it is here to stay, ma'am.
You mean to say digital economy,
Yes, ma'am.
digital currency is here to stay.
Yes.
Why is it a good investment?
Ma'am, I would not completely agree with the fact that it is a good investment. However, I can still point out one or two reasons. The first is that the digital, as we have seen, there has been a lot of boom in the prices of the Bitcoin.
Yeah, what is the current value, today's value?
Ma'am, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Is there an increase, intraday increase or decrease?
Ma'am, I have not read
Not
about
able to say. Okay. Go on.
So, ma'am, I think that this kind of sudden boom, it offers a short term. Those who want to take short term positions, they can get certain benefit out of it. So that kind of investment would be can be thought of, but in the long run, in my personal opinion, bitcoins are not a good investment option. As RBI Deputy Governor himself had pointed out that they are worse than even the Ponzi schemes, because at least even the Ponzi scheme invest in the good assets, but they don't have any asset. Like he used the term that not even the tulip
But
is there.
the RBI is indirectly now recognizing it.
Ma'am, RBI wants to launch an Indian currency that would be based upon the Bitcoin, but that would be having,
Regulations?
yes, ma'am. In the terms of regulation, RBI has vehemently opposed the legalization of the Bitcoin. But still, as a sort of punitive step, this year's budget proposes that 30% of the taxes and 1% TDS would be there in case there are any Bitcoin transactions.
So you have recognized it.
Ma'am, completely we cannot ban it because as of now we lack the legal framework for it.
Yeah.
So
So we are heading there. All right. My last question on Surya Namaskar meditation. What are the benefits of yoga to an individual?
ma'am, we have multi-dimensional benefits. First, if we look in the physical terms, doing yoga and meditation, yoga like Surya Namaskar, like asanas, and meditation both, they help in improving the blood circulation. Various kind of muscles get toned, they get strengthened, and it also helps in reducing the weight as well. If you look in the terms of mental aspect, meditation and yoga help in developing certain sense of calmness, equanimity, and at the same time it develops concentration and focus that helps the person in all of his endeavors. The third is the emotional well-being as well. A person is able to examine his or her emotions in a very detached manner, not completely but to a large extent, and this improves the emotional well-being of a person.
So yoga is basically what?
Ma'am, yoga, it is a complete lifestyle. It includes the, like Patanjali in his Ashtanga Yoga, he had pointed out that there has to be ahar, vihar, achar. He pointed out the yamas like ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha. There are niyamas also. And then comes the asan, then pranayam, then dharana, then dhyan, and then samadhi.
Okay.
So it is a complete evolution of a self.
Thank you.
Gauri Shankar.
Okay, Ashutosh, you read self-improvement books.
Yes, sir.
What are the books you have read?
Sir, I have read If You Think You Can by T.J. Washington, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Attitude is Everything by Jeff Keller, and The Power of Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy.
So, what is the power of subconscious mind?
Sir, the mind, the cortex part of the brain that we think we are using in our daily life for thinking and doing the rational activities, only a very small part. But primarily, human being is governed by his or her own habits, and habits are present deep down in our subconscious mind. And these habits are not only the physical habit, but the habitual thoughts that we keep on thinking. For example, there can be a self-talk like "I cannot do it," "Oh, this is beyond my capacity." These kind of words people keep on using in their daily life, and they don't realize that this kind of subconscious programming that they are doing, it kinds of imposes a self-limiting belief on them. And instead, in the power of subconscious mind, he uses Dr. Joseph Murphy proposes techniques like auto
So,
suggestion.
how does this subconscious mind comes into existence?
Sir, subconscious mind, it starts building up right from the time we take the birth, and like Indian philosophy suggests that even the sanskaras from the previous birth are also carried. But the Western scholars, they think that mind is a tabula rasa, that is, it is a clean slate. So, like we are accumulating the impressions right from the childhood, and they keep on becoming a part of our habit. The kind of talk we hear from our parents right from the childhood, the society that we live in, the kind of textbooks that we read, this all brings starts developing a kind of attitude in our subconscious mind, which later is, if not properly taken care of, can become a misguiding force, and if properly guided, can become a good force also.
Okay, you were talking about commanding heights of the economy.
Yes, sir.
That was the time when we followed what we call socialistic pattern of society.
Yes.
If that was really the commanding height, then why did we have to go for the reforms in 1991?
Sir, the public sector undertakings over a period of the time, they had become very inefficient, and this was also because,
So, do you think they were efficient before and then they become inefficient?
sir,
If
in
that
the,
was the case, why did we were confined to 2.2 to 3% growth rate, as we call it, Hindu rate of growth?
sir, if we look in the context of 1950s, then we also have to see what kind of situation those public sector undertakings were set up, and what kind of broader economic scenario was. So, a good for a public sector undertaking to clearly thrive way back in 1950s or 1960s, it also needs various other things like a good logistics, infrastructure, good health of a banking institutions, which at that time were not present. So I think these cumulative factors were responsible behind this rate of growth of 2.5 to 3%.
Don't you think if we had liberalized our economy 10, 15 years before, we would have been much better today in terms of economic growth,
Yes, sir.
as China did?
Yes, sir. The market socialism by the Deng Xiaoping under the China in 1979. I think if we had adopted it, we would also have been one of the tiger economies.
Okay, so the concept of commanding heights of the economy is somewhat misleading. You agree with that?
Sir, in the context of 1950, it may have been a pragmatic path, but till 1980s and 90s, it became kind of
A burden on the
yes,
society.
a burden on society.
Okay. Now, what do you understand by supply chain?
Sir, supply chain, it is a complete value chain that starts right from the where the raw materials are produced, their transportation to the processing sector, and then ultimately reaching to the wholesalers and then the retailers.
Give me an example.
So, for example, we can talk about making of maybe papads, as we can say. In the food processing, it is much easier. So the wheat is grown in the rice in the fields, and then
Papad is a very simple example. Take the example of a vehicle.
vehicle. In the context of vehicles, sir, the supply chain is now becoming a global supply chain.
Exactly. So this is not one sequence. It's a multiple sequences which come into play.
Yes, sir.
And there's some parts coming from there, some rubber parts coming, lights coming from tires coming from somewhere else,
Yes, sir.
and the steel coming from somewhere else, the engine coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
So it's a multiple kind of. So how do we manage those kind of supply chains in terms of like COVID and now the Ukraine war? How do we manage that?
So whenever a crisis situation strikes, like COVID or a Ukraine war,
Mhm.
supply chain is definitely interrupted. And so in that context, the government, the industrial bodies like we have FICCI, ASSOCHAM, etc., they have to come together and they have to identify the alternate sources. For example, if we are facing the sunflower oil shortage, which used to come from the Ukraine, we have to look for the alternative oil. It can be supplied from Indonesia, Malaysia via palm oil,
Mhm.
and in this way, they have to be identified from where we can source it. The economics has to be seen, the transportation linkages, whether we have them or not. All of these factors have to be taken into the account, and then the supply chain is remanaged.
So what is government trying to do on this issue now?
Sir, government is not trying to come in with the concept of supply chain resilience, and we have seen a supply chain resilience initiative has been started by
And what
Australia.
about Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Sir, Atmanirbhar Bharat requires a strong supply chain because we want to become Atmanirbhar Bharat, and yes, that is also one of the major way in which we can tackle the supply chain vulnerabilities that are there.
Okay. Now, what is you took political science as your subject? So, what is real politics?
Sir, in international context and even in the domestic, the real politics, it is the Machiavellian idea of a pure power politics, where the power is the mean and power is the end. So
Anybody who gave this idea much before Machiavelli.
Sir, in Indian context, we had Kautilya who had
Yeah,
written.
but why don't you talk about Indian context? We are Indian, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So why do we refer to Machiavelli first and go back to 4th century BC afterwards?
Sir, it has been because it is said that most of the political scientists they are influenced by the ethnocentric attitude of the Western. There is ethnocentric attitude in the Western scholars where they feel a sense of superiority, and also it is it is a kind of difficult for Western scholars to understand the Indian concepts because in India we have a continuity between
So
man.
I'm
and-
asking you, what is the real politic concept and how it has been propounded?
Sir, Kautilya, in his Mandal Siddhant and through his Saptanga theory, he had talked about if a Vijigishu, that is a conqueror, he has to acquire the land which is necessary for a prosperity and well-being. He has to take into account various factors like the enemies in the forward, who are there in the front like Ari, and Parsh Vinigre, who is enemy in the back.
That is more on the foreign policy.
Yes.
That is what you call Mandala Siddhant. That's
Yes.
more on the foreign policy. The Saptang theory is more on real politics. So can you explain to me that?
In Saptang theory, sir, Kautilya talks about the 7 organs or the Sapt Ang of the state. And the first one is the king, who is the Nabhi or the center. And if the king is very powerful, then he can convert the weaknesses of the state into the strength. The second are the Amatyas or the ministers. They are the learned ministers. And it is Kautilya advises that the king should frequently keep on checking the loyalty of the ministers. The third comes the Janpad, that is
Okay.
where the-
Okay. Now your mother comes from Jhansi.
Yes.
So what was the role of Jhansi in the War of Independence?
Sir, in the revolt of 1857, Rani Lakshmi Bai, she played a very pioneering role and she gave a lot of tough fight to the Britishers. She not only tried to defend the Jhansi, but she also led an expedition against the Sindhyas of the Gwalior.
She was fighting against what?
Her territory had been acquired under the doctrine of the lapse by the Lord
Mhm.
Dalhousie,
Mhm.
and she was against this idea and she wanted her son, an
So she
adopted
was
son.
fighting against the doctrine of lapse.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Harish ji.
Ashutosh, do you think unemployment is really a significant issue now in India?
Sir, according to the periodic labor force survey that keeps on coming out, the unemployment rate is around 5.8%, and this is the only the official one. Usually, the data are not very comprehensive, so there may be a lot of unemployment still there. So it is a very significant issue, and being a country with a huge demographic dividend, we need to tackle this problem.
How to do that?
So for that, we have to start sector by sector. First, the agriculture sector, which is the biggest employer, and we have a lot of disguised unemployment in it. So we have to link the agriculture sector and create bridges with the other sector, and the food processing can be, and textile, especially the agro-based textile. We have to promote them because they are the labor-intensive industries. We have schemes like PM Mitra Park, production-linked incentives. They can create a lot of employment. Gig economy is also coming up, which provides a lot of self-employment. Apart from that, there are schemes like Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission, and self-employment trainings are provided there, where people can start their own startups and their own whatever vocation they want to follow. Skill development is also needed in that, because without the skills, finding a meaningful and gainful employment would not be a reality. So all of these factors have to be taken into account.
But do you think such patchwork would be really healthy for the economy? I mean, you are trying to solve one problem, but overall, is it good for the economy?
Sir, if we have a lot of demographic dividend, if we have a lot of young population, then definitely solving the employment would require reforms in vast sectors, and it would overall it would lead to the upliftment of the economy only. Just by tackling one problem, it can have the ripple effects in other sectors, and that too the positive ones.
Okay, fine. You know, many of the electrical products has UL written on it.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Sir, I'm not aware of it.
You know, it's a very big U and L.
Yes, sir. Sir,
No?
I'm not aware of it.
Something to do with safety, you
Okay.
might recall. You never studied it?
No, sir.
Okay, it is a safety standard.
Okay, sir.
In fact, when all these products were coming out, initial phase,
Yes, sir.
there are a lot of non-uniformity and there's a lot of fire because of that. So this is a company called Underwriters Laboratory,
Okay, sir.
and that certifies the standards of the product.
Okay, sir.
You will see it. Every electric products would have that.
So now I will notice it some more.
Now tell me, why do we have this 110 volt and 220 volt system? Why we have this?
Sir, in USA, the Westinghouse and Tesla, he had started with the 110 volt and the 60 hertz frequency system there. And it was considered more efficient because the kind of lighting system that was used way back in the USA, it was getting better efficiency at this 110 volts and 60 hertz. However, across the Europe, this 220 volts and the 50 hertz had been standardized. And then we were under the British rule. Then the first hydroelectric power plant that was set up in the Darjeeling in 1890s was set up for the 50 hertz.
What is the advantage of 220 and
Sir,
50?
both have their own advantages and disadvantages. If we look in the terms of voltage, then 110 volts would be safer for the domestic supply as compared to the 220 volts. But if we look in the terms of losses, the 220 volts and 50 hertz, because it is at a lesser frequency, the transmission losses would be lesser as compared to the 110 volts and 60 hertz system.
So, and then why not 330? Why only these two?
Sir,
And why is multiple of 100?
Sir, extra 10 I am aware of, but why it is exactly multiple of 100 I am not aware of. Sir.
Multiple of 11.
Yeah, I mean 111.
11.
This additional
11.
10% is given to compensate for the voltage drop that might happen in the course of transmission.
Okay, final question. Tell me something about education policy in connection with the technical education.
Sir, national education policy, it envisages a national digital education architecture, and that connects with the technical education as well. Secondly,
Now I'm talking about training engineers,
okay, sir. Sir,
not the use of digital media.
Sir, in context of engineers, I think national education policy is focusing now on the interdisciplinary kind of a study system for them. And there should be dual degree courses and interdisciplinary studies, if that includes the humanities, etc., so that we have a more comprehensive understanding. For example, IIT Kanpur has opened up a department of cognitive sciences, and it includes professors from psychology, computer science, neurology, etc.
No, that it had for quite some time. It's not because of this. It's not. We are talking about new education policy.
Sir, exact technical features I'm not aware of.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Ashutosh, we'll take you back for a few minutes.
Okay, sir.
We'll call you again for feedback.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All the best.
So Ashutosh, have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
When is your interview fixed?
Around 10th May.
10th of May. You have a lot of time with you. So Ashutosh, first of all, let me ask you, what do you think was your performance in this particular mock interview? How did you fare?
It's a certain aspect I should have studied more about.
Okay. Which are the aspects you think that you need to study slightly more?
So, like national education policy, since my
Okay.
parents are from teaching background, I should
Yeah.
be studying more
Okay,
about it.
all right. Okay, so Ashutosh, first of all, I'll talk about the strengths. Of course, you'll be getting the recorded interview, the recording also. But let me first of all concentrate on your strengths. Your mental alertness is absolutely very good. You were able to understand the question and come out with the answers. You took time in understanding also, and then you came out with very cogent and coherent answers. That's a great strength of yours. Number two, it was very clear and logical. So the answers were flowing very logically. So that again was your strength. Then your communication skills and articulation skills are very good. Then of course your answers were at no point of time did we find that you were trying to bluff, which again is a positive thing. And fifth is your even some of the provocative questions which we asked you, you were able to come out very well, admirably well. And confidence was definitely reflected. Your demeanor, your presentation skills, choice of words, structuring of sentences, your dress sense, all these were very good. So all these go in your favor, and your knowledge about current affairs and also the subject. In most of the cases, barring one or two places, there may be some gaps, but then one cannot learn everything. It's always a learning process. So everything is very good. Now coming specifically to some of the areas. First of all, I will not discuss those questions where you have answered very well.
Yes, sir.
You were able to come out with very convincing and good answers in majority of the cases. But one or two things, that is Land Acquisition Act, you can study.
Yes, sir.
Because when the question regarding ease of doing business
Yes,
and how to sell your Uttar Pradesh to the people who are wanting to set up, you started off very well that you will have an investment summit. And well, the Modi ji also did the same thing.
Yes, sir.
The diaspora abroad, he went there and he wanted people to come. So that a good beginning was made. And then you also came out with good solutions, that these are the things, and good points about law and order, and many the difference between topography and culture in the different parts of UP and so on. So everything was good. And the only thing which you probably did not concentrate was some of the areas like tax benefits, because that is one thing
Yes,
which
sir.
is the most attractive thing to
Yes,
an
sir.
entrepreneur, ease of doing business. So what is there to offer? They will ask this, and land.
Yes, sir.
Then you came out with good answers regarding PLI and other new things which have been brought by this present government to encourage the manufacturing sector. So you gave the example that the acquisition of highways and expressways has been very smooth,
Yes, sir.
to give the indication that acquisition is not a very difficult thing. So the act you can study comparison with the old act
Okay, sir.
in terms of compensation, in terms of there are pieces of land which cannot be acquired. The quality of land has for the first time,
Yes, sir.
it has come into play. And then challenges of local bodies,
Okay, sir.
that you should know. And the district administration, we did not ask you any question, but you must prepare on that.
Okay, sir.
The role of the collector, role of the district magistrate, and the role of the deputy commissioner.
Okay, sir.
So coordination.
Yes, sir.
So you must know who are at first hand the district level officers. What role collector has in agriculture production may not be directly.
Yes,
There is
sir.
a line department, but he has a coordinating role.
Okay, sir.
Provision of electricity, water supply, marketing of agricultural produce, all these things are, So the role of the threefold role, revenue administration, is the collector. Who is the hierarchy? What is the hierarchy in revenue? You must know. What is the job as revenue, as collector?
Okay.
Court cases and the land record management and so on. Second is that of criminal procedure code, where he has to function as district magistrate. You must study that. Third is coordinating. Fourth is elections.
Okay.
Fifth is public policies in respect of some of the specific sectors
Yes, sir.
like women, children,
Yes, sir.
senior citizens,
Yes, sir.
scheduled castes, scheduled tribes,
Yes, sir.
handicapped, and so on.
Yes.
Then read the constitution very well,
Okay,
and
sir.
all the special acts
Yes, sir.
for these sectors, like I told you, women, and then the public policies.
Yes,
So
sir.
it can be, Ujjwala Yojana and so on. So that is important. Then role of local bodies. Then what are the functions of the local bodies? Urban local bodies and the rural local bodies. All the 3 tiers. Then questions were asked regarding why shift to civil services.
Yes, sir.
So you said that it was my aim from the very beginning. That is why you did not actually go in for campus placement also. So you will have to, while giving the answer to this, you will have to highlight the uniqueness of civil services, what it has to offer.
Yes, sir.
That you have to come out with very cogent answer, because you have been an excellent, outstanding student on the, in the subjects in the engineering. So there will be the requirement of telling them why you want to move. So from that, so for example, just to tell you quickly that it has a leadership qualities. You occupy leadership position at a very young age.
Okay, sir.
You can do a lot of good to the citizens of this country.
Yes, sir.
You have a lot of ingenuity, creativity,
Yes, sir.
innovation,
Yes, sir.
administrative powers,
Yes,
which
sir.
you can use to do something good to the
Yes,
people.
sir.
You are a part of the governance, public governance.
Yes, sir.
You are a part of the public policy making process.
Yes, sir.
So public policy making, identifying the problems, formulation,
Yes, sir.
legitimization, implementations. So that is the reason why you want to come to the civil service. Then time travel to be a reality, that you mentioned that it will require a huge amount of energy.
Yes, sir.
And economy is not very sound, but the markets are booming, which you were able to come out. So I'll not go into that. Bitcoin also, you said that, gave the answer. Meditation and yoga. Now, now the book on self improvement, which you had mentioned, and power of subconscious mind also you have mentioned. So I will not go into that. And the whether the reforms 1991, the comparison with the China, and you came out with the answer. Supply chain, again, the question was asked, again an important question which you were able to give quite a good reply. And government is doing what it is doing in respect of that. So Atmanirbhar, if you had dropped that name, it would have been a better thing, because some of the flagship programs of this government, you must understand that they are for improving the manufacturing sector and also looking inwards, so that such kind of Ukraine and all these problems do not affect, our sectors. So Atmanirbhar Bharat, and then real politic and role of Jhansi. So you have to study a lot on the Uttar Pradesh, the historical aspect, the cultural aspect, the agriculture, the situation of the different infrastructure projects in Uttar Pradesh which have come, the airports and so on, ease of doing business, why Uttar Pradesh is ideally located for bringing, and then many constraints, problems, social problems, all these things. Okay. Then electrical engineering, we did not ask you much about it, but you should know. One thing I wanted to ask you, why are you wearing those rings? That question will come. Someone may ask me whether you are wearing Pukhraj and you are wearing what is the third one?
Sir, this is simple gold ring.
Gold. So gold and Pukhraj. So
Yes, sir.
they may ask this question.
My father has asked me to wear.
Father has asked it. Okay, all right. And then unemployment problems. This that you have to, that question. You go and slightly study more on that. Why unemployment? Because this was a major issue in the last elections also. So what you can do? You had given a figure of 5.8%, but and you also said that demographic dividend being very high in this. We have a very young population, so this becomes all the more necessary, because people become then disenchanted with the government. So we need to be very concerned. And then of course why multiple of 11 in terms of volts. So that of course is there, and education policy. So that's about it, and I think you have done exceedingly well, and you have a lot of time. So go on improving the knowledge, write down the answers, just that rather than memorizing them. But you appear to have a good retentive power, and your way of expressing things is very good, barring some of the areas where we have indicated. That will help you out. And sun salutation meditation also, you were able to come out very well in terms of Patanjali, and so on. So, do you have any questions to ask?
But is this ring giving a negative connotation?
Well, I suggest to you,
Okay, sir.
leave the rings at home.
Okay, sir.
Unnecessarily, why provoke people to ask a question on that?
Okay, sir.
Then one question will lead to another question, and so on. So,
Don't implicate the entire family, mothers and fathers. You see that
You can keep it in your pocket.
it
or
may
for
be
the
very
interview.
sentimental, no doubt about it.
Yes, sir.
But try to bring out with answers which are logical and cogent, rather than taking the shelter behind the sentimental aspect. That my father asked me to do this, or I want to fulfill the dream of my father. It may sound very, very good, but it will be better to base your answers on very sound logic,
which you have.
which you already possess.
Yes, sir.
You don't require the crutches of anything else
Okay, sir.
to walk, to
I'll
success.
also suggest that you should scan the board little bit because you are concentrating only on one, individual at that time slightly, not all the time, but once or
Basically,
twice
they
in
are
between.
part of the presentation skills. So when you can stand before a mirror, and the question, whosoever is asking the question,
Yes, sir.
most of the time, 80% of the time, your eye contact should be with him.
Okay,
But
sir.
20% of the time, you can quickly scan left to right, right to left.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
and your body language.
And don't use Bitcoin. It's digital currency. You're using Bitcoin is the first one, so naturally it comes. But proper word would be digital currency
Okay, sir.
because there are so many of them.
Yeah, but the logical question which arises is that on one hand, the government has not recognized.
Yes.
Supreme Court has said something else that it
Yes.
should be there.
Yes,
On the other hand, they have imposed taxation on that.
yes, sir.
So in a way, it has validated.
Yes, sir. Indirect
Yeah.
taxation.
So let me say that you are very good. And
Ashutosh, one more thing which I wanted to point out is the chairman has already said the emotional bit. Even that you're fulfilling your mother's dream doesn't sound to be very plausible kind of a thing. So, give a reason which says that this is what I aspire to, or this is what my dream is. And towards the end, if you like, you can just say, my mother also wanted to, or she has
Okay,
also given. So let it be your logical conclusion. Look a little bit into the parliament functioning.
Yes, sir.
Where are the finance bills introduced?
Yes, ma'am.
What under the garb of finance bills
Yes, ma'am.
are introduced in the Lok Sabha?
Okay, ma'am.
Because it is at the discretion of the Lok Sabha speaker
Yes, ma'am.
whether to accept a bill as a finance bill or not. And if
Okay.
any bill they accept as finance bill, it
Okay.
will go through.
Okay.
Okay. And how from the stage of introduction of a bill to the final enactment
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
act, the processes.
Yes, ma'am.
Look into that.
Okay.
so the economy of this country, go through the budget,
Yes.
go through the constitution article by article to understand how the polity works,
Yes, sir.
and also understand a few things regarding the three jeopardy which has happened: demonetization, GST, and then COVID-19.
Okay,
So
sir.
they have added together to responsible for the situation
Yes.
of economy as we are in them.
Okay.
But you must think about and remain on the right side of the government. Never speak ill of the government
Sure.
there. And one more thing, last thing, my parting thing. Whenever you give answers, you have been doing it. I'm not at all trying to say, give the best part of the answer first, the priority.
Okay.
If there are different, for example, if what are the social problems of Uttar Pradesh? So there are 4 or 5 things. Beggary is there, uneducation is there,
Yes, sir.
health parameters are not there.
Yes, sir.
So give the most important thing as the first,
Okay.
then the second, the third. Okay, and always whenever there are controversial questions, they have a balanced approach, pros and cons,
Okay.
and always supplement it with your examples.
Okay.
That will strengthen you.
What was your J rank?
Ma'am, 1614.
1600.
Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, I was allotted chemical engineering, but after that I got a perfect 10 pointer, so I had an option for a branch.
First term.
Yes.
First term you got
In
perfect.
first
10.
year.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, all the best to you. You will do very well.
Thank you.
But
Thank you,
just you have done exceedingly well. But you can really come out with flying colors in that interview, which we hope you will. And all the best.
All the best.
Good luck.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.